Watch out for the hole.
What hole? Watch out for the portable hole. Rock out to the portable hole. Watch out for the portable hole. Rock out to the portable hole.
Your trip, by the way, Just.
We'll get into that.
Okay.
Wait, well, we talked about it last episode, right?
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Is there more to the story?
Oh no.
Yeah,
Oh, I guess.
Yeah, no. He.
I guess Cinik just didn't hear. You didn't hear what happened.
I didn't. No, I didn't hear last week's because what were we covering? Because whatever it was, I didn't watch it.
It was Reacher.
Yeah, I didn't get to that yet
Okay.
because we ended up watching Ted, and I was fucking zoned out all week.
Yeah, no, that was So how was your vacation, Justin?
So,
give the
long
cliff notes.
story short, I wiped out on a moped that was way too powerful. It was basically a motorcycle, and I smashed into a car and completely busted up my legs and my knee and ankle and stuff like that. So yeah, it was pretty crazy.
You Tobied the whole vacation?
Yeah, pretty much. It was the rest of it was fun though.
What day into the trip
was
was this?
busking? Day one. Because maybe day two.
Yeah, I didn't hear Ryan when he said what you were doing there, and I said it sounded to me like he said you were stripping. So we had about a 30-second conversation about you stripping.
Yeah,
that's funny. No, I
I
was
was like, what is Justin doing? He's stripping?
I was busking there, and we actually got code enforcement called on us because we were using amplification, and it was another busker.
Oh shit!
Who tattletaled on us because they wanted us to move.
We were getting it's kind of like the ice cream wars. You know how there's legitimate issues with ice cream truck. It's like the same underground busking organizations battling it out.
Were you playing hips or only deep cuts? What was going on?
No, you only play hits. You got to play what people know. Got to play touristy music, whatever that is. Whatever.
I like that.
Well, what's funny? So I jokingly said that Justin got, was reckless driving, but he actually got a ticket for reckless driving.
Yeah, I got a ticket for reckless driving.
I got one of those once.
It was ridiculous. Which reminds me, I have to send in my not guilty verdict. Or not verdict, but my plea.
But if you fight it, doesn't that mean you're going to have to go to court and
that's the whole
show back
thing.
Up down there?
Then I get to go back down there, right? It gives me an excuse to go down.
If you're itching to go back to Florida, I guess.
Unlimited travel budget. Excuse me.
Remember, Key West is a little different. So it is Florida, but it's basically it's its own thing down there. They have their own laws and their own jurisdiction and everything. And I could just stay at my buddy's place. So yeah, the flights are not expensive. So
it's a cheap trip. Yeah,
for the most part. That's fair. All right. So we'll get started. We're already recording, so we're good to go. Welcome to the Portable Hole Podcast. I'm Ryan George, and I'm here with my good friends Justin and Cinik. How are you guys doing?
Well, I'm a little sick, not with the cove, but just sick in general. So I got a little cold. It's frustrating. It's like things were going well too. Yeah. I was getting a lot done. And I was being very productive, and it's like. I went to physical therapy today, and I just got home, and I just passed out for a couple hours. I was tired, but hopefully it'll be gone in a day or so.
Yeah. How you doing, Cinik? You're back after a week away?
Oh yeah, I completely missed you guys. I mean the charges were dropped, so everything kind of comes out in the wash. But it was an exciting week.
Yeah. Hey, what'd you do? What made it exciting?
Ryan, I'm lying. Don't make me pontificate any further into the. You're ruining it.
Don't take things so literally. Not the first time I've heard that.
You just blew the bit. I'll see you guys next week.
Yeah, that's it. Done.
Yeah. Well, it's good to have both you guys back in. It's fun. It was holding down the fort a little bit for the last couple of weeks, but it's always good to have both you guys on here. So I guess what have you guys been watching? Cinik, have you been watching anything interesting recently?
Yeah, I just recently picked up the I guess it's the full-length series of Ted on Peacock, where they went to a kind of a prequel episodic type deal, and yeah, it's been a lot of fun. I mean, I would definitely recommend it to everybody. I'm not quite sure about the actor they chose for John, but the humor remains the same, super vulgar, and you kind of get a look at John's home life and kind of how they ended up where they ended up in the movies. But I mean, for the price of Peacock, which is still relatively cheap compared to everything else. And speaking of which, I got some axes to grind with Amazon there.
Oh,
but
really? Okay.
I mean, Peacock is super affordable, and it still has a lot of great content on it. So yeah, Ted is one of those things that you should definitely check out.
Listen to a podcast that refers to it as the cock, and so whenever I think of or hear or refer to Peacock, I like instinctively it's like I have to refer to it as the cock. I don't know why. I brought up that little anecdote, but that is
who owns Peacock.
So what are your issues with Amazon? Yeah. What's your gripe with Amazon?
If you guys watched Mr. and Mrs. Smith on Legal Means, then you've seen that Amazon has now introduced a ad-free option when it has always been free, and it's been a perk for having Amazon Prime. And I love Amazon Prime. I probably do about 75% of my shopping on there outside of food, but it annoys the shit out of me that I now have to shell out $3 a month to stop the ads, which they haven't gotten too invasive or too awful yet, but it's coming where they're going to break up movies and shows and shit with it. And I just think it's where they could have separated themselves from the other streaming services.
Yeah. I guess that's part of the challenge is like, is it us being, because I noticed that last week watching it was frustrating, but it's like us being like, we had a good thing and we should, just appreciate it while you have it, but it's free. Versus, is it more that we just we're fortunate to have something free for a while and now it's not quite as free or as convenient, or is there something wrong with what Amazon is actually doing?
Is my $3 a month going to put them over the fucking top, Ryan? I mean, do they not? I mean, the guy is the richest person in the world. He could kick some back to the company and maybe save me a couple bucks.
Yeah, and I mean, to be fair, it's like this is not. It's like I feel like it's more of a passion project. I don't know that this is what Amazon, this is where they're making their bread and or where their bread is buttered, I guess, so to speak. So yeah, it's like it's a weird thing to start charging people. And then what's the next step? Is it like there's no ad free version or there's no ad version? It's just going to be a separate paid thing. What were you saying, Justin?
Well, that's what companies do, right? You're always looking for the next way to make some bucks, and $3, right? Millions of users a month, that comes out to big money at the end of the year, and that's always what they're looking for. So they're like, well, we got the content. I'm just looking at it from a business perspective. It's like we got the content, and we know that people are still going to subscribe to Prime, right? And some will get the extra service, some just don't care, some will just do it. But see, here's the sort of sneaky part that I don't like is the way that they do it. They're like, ad free, do you want it? And it pops up on and it's confusing. So a lot of people might click on, oh yeah, no, I want an ad-free version, and they'll just go and they get lured into it. So that is sort of the shady part. Look, it's still better than watching regular television that has a lot more ads. 8 minutes worth for every 30 minutes is a lot more than what we're getting on Prime. So it makes, from a business perspective, I get what they're doing. It's like, look, you want us to remove the ads? Pay, you pay a little bit more. I get it. I don't like it, but my issue is the way that they did it. That little bubble pops up, and it's like, oh, you want it ad free? Just and a lot of people will mindlessly. It feels like that's so many companies are doing that now. It's like the sketchy sale where they lure you into it through sort of technical means, like someone's just sitting there. You just click on something and then you're lured in. It's very sort of shady. It's dishonest. So that's more my issue is the way they went about it.
Yeah. I mean, the thing for me also is I don't know. I feel like we're getting to the point where I don't know how valuable Prime is anymore, because yeah, okay, it's convenient to get things delivered right away, but like I'm finding now more often than not, I don't know about more often than not, but often I'm just getting stuff outside of Amazon because it's just cheaper to get things elsewhere. All my dog stuff, which I used to get on Amazon, I get on Chewy. A lot of times it's like, this thing is cheaper for me to go over to Target to get it. And so I found that lately I'm not using Amazon as much because I'm just not seeing the same kind of value. And so maybe there is a world where like, I'm like, you know what, I don't need Prime. And do I really, so I don't know. It's annoying because I think it's always great to have the, have the, the shows, but also like there aren't that many shows.
No, they're not. And something that I don't love about Amazon, just from the shopping, is the sheer number of vendors that you can't return stuff to now. Like that was sort of a thing with Amazon. You're protected in a way, and you still are, but although you have to jump through hoops, now there are so many vendors that are in China that you can't ship stuff back to, and they sell you crappy products, not what you purchased, right? It just happened today, like literally today, right? We got something, we couldn't return it, we brought it to the post office, like this is not an address, right? Oh, you have to fill out a customs form and it's going to cost you more than the product to ship it back. We're like, we're not going to do that. So, we had to call Amazon and go through the whole thing, and it's first world problems of sorts, but it kind of goes with your whole thing. It's like, well, why, the whole idea was like you're buying from, what you're getting, and now you don't. So yeah, there's less and less reasons now. That's what happens, disruption. And I did.
So Justin, have you been watching anything recently besides what we're gonna review today?
Not too much. I don't know how you guys have time to watch so many shows. Crazy.
I don't know how I have time,
because we're not hopping flights to Key West every weekend.
Yeah.
We don't busk and reckless drive. So, but actually, this week I was not much. I watched, I got through Mr. and Mrs. Smith and watched the first episode of Curb Your Enthusiasm, the last season. Which do you guys both watch it?
I mean, I've gotten through the first 2 seasons a couple times, but I've never gone deeper than that. Okay. And I know I have to because it's amazing. It's great, it's just one of those shows that always end up on the back burner.
Yeah, it's something definitely an acquired taste, but it's fun. The first episode was fun. More of the same, only he's angrier. And there's some good stuff there. I love the greatest decision they ever made was him and Leon. Like that, bringing on having Leon as his kind of like sidekick. It's just amazing their relationship and the chemistry that they have together. But yeah, it was definitely a solid first episode.
I'll be watching it.
Sad to see it's gonna go, but it's been on for long enough, and we can always
a really long time.
Leon is JB Smooth, right?
Yeah.
That guy is fucking hilarious in the Spider-Man films.
Funny.
Yeah, he is.
He's great. Like one of the best cast additions ever.
Yeah, no, absolutely. No, he's awesome. So I'm excited. I'm glad. I just love the they're back together, and we'll get I guess a 10-episode season of it. So that should be fun. So let's get into news. So I pulled. There's a bunch of different interesting news stories. We'll see how many we get through. The first one. So it's funny. Like we don't I rarely talk about wrestling, and like this is the 3rd or 4th straight week that we brought up something from the WWE. So
bringing us back to 8th grade.
No, seriously. I mean, it could be just that it's like bigger than it's ever been, almost, it seems right now. But like, so either the Rock and the WWE have pulled the greatest like work on everybody, or The Rock is trying to like basically not sabotage, but kind of throw himself into the mix in WrestleMania in a way that's kind of selfish and so basically a few weeks ago he was named to the board named to board of directors of TKO, and given a lot of money, and I don't know if you're following how much you know of what's going on, Justin.
I've gotten a few little, but basically bits and pieces. Yeah.
So on the Rock side, obviously he's one of the biggest stars in Hollywood, but he's had a rough few years where it seems like, initially like he's had a couple movies that have bombed. There was issues with him and other actors in the Fast and the Furious franchise and in Black Adam. There were issues of him trying to kind of, take over the DC EU, and and then Black Adam was a disaster, and there's just kind of all kinds of controversy with him. So he was somebody who was like untouchable for a long time,
Sure.
but just has had kind of misstep after misstep, and then was named to the board. And then you have so in the WWE, there's this. What's happening is, so Cody Rhodes, who's Dusty Rhodes' son, was kind of meandering around as a mid-carder for a long time, finally left, went on his own, and basically built himself up into a major star. And he returned a couple of years ago. And when he returned, he's become basically the biggest like babyface in wrestling.
Sure.
He's been massive. And the big storyline for him is basically, it's like they keep calling it finishing his story, which is basically that, his dad, won the title, I think it was Madison Square Garden, but he won the title, but that never actually happened. Like I forget what the circumstances were, but like for one night he had the title, but then it was never official, never happened. And so his whole thing has been chasing that title, like winning the belt. And he went into WrestleMania, fought in the main event last year and lost. And it was initially like, for a lot of people, it was like, this is crazy, because the expectation was he's got to win, he's going to win, and he didn't. And so it's been building back for him to do it again this year. He wins the Royal Rumble and is supposed to fight in WrestleMania, supposed to choose Roman Reigns, who's the longest running champion in a very long time. And then The Rock somehow finds his way in the mix. So the crazy thing is that when The Rock found his way in the mix, and it seemed as if Cody Rhodes was going to choose the other champion to fight for the championship, the fans revolted, and there was like a big revolt online with people like, we want Cody was a massive like trending thing online. The following Raw, the fans booed any mentions of The Rock. They were constantly chanting, we want Cody. It was as if like the entire fan base just turned on The Rock. And like the video of The Rock showing up and basically coming face to face with Roman Reigns and, ostensibly announcing that The Rock is going to fight him at WrestleMania was the most disliked video like in the history of the WWE. It's something, something crazy. So the question then in this situation is like, either this is a huge work by the WWE and they figured it out. Like they knew the fans would turn, and this is a brilliant move to make Cody Rhodes even a bigger baby face, because he become a bigger face to the point that like the fans will revolt. Or it's The Rock kind of stepping in where he, doesn't belong to mess things up again, and now they're going to have to kind of course correct. So, Cinik, have you been following this story, and any thoughts on which of those two it is?
Well, have you ever done something and it just turned out amazing and you didn't mean to? Like maybe you fell and you threw something in the air and you caught it and it just looked awesome.
Yeah.
Well, that's what they're doing. Okay. It's unintended consequences, and they're going to roll with it, which they should, because in the end, it's going to be brilliant. But I don't think that they brought The Rock along and to say, oh, let's build Cody up to be a bigger star. I think that they saw what was happening, and this is a grand opportunity to kind of pull this guy up to the next level. Because even though in the Indies and AEW, he was the man, he's still not quite there yet. Like in the WWE panthos of superstars. So I think that this is the opportunity, and I think they will find a way to pull them up, because they need to start creating new stars. They can't just keep bringing these older guys back.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's the thing. It's like, it's the biggest box office thing you could do is have The Rock and Roman Reigns. Like, that's the money thing, because that's going to bring in all the casual fans. The thing is, though, for me, I was actually looking forward to it. Like, I've been following it kind of on the ends, and I was like, you know what, I'm going to watch WrestleMania, because it actually is interesting. If The Rock fights Roman Reigns, I don't think I want to watch it anymore. So I've kind of like bought it, but now you're right. Like, it's as if they realize it. So the WWE leaned into it. So they've been, they've been talking about this being a big deal, and apparently something just happened today, like some kind of WrestleMania, like, a related event. So it seems like they've realized, whether or not it's a work, they realize this is a big deal, and they've kind of latched onto it. And you're right. It's like it was kind of happy accident, but it's going to make it bigger than it ever was going to be. It seems.
Well, they get all the benefit from The Rock wrestling without him actually wrestling.
Yeah,
like they get all the buzz. His name is in the story, and the unintended consequences, you make Cody Rhodes a superstar.
Yeah, exactly. Because I mean, that's the thing. It's like he's becoming. It's kind of interesting because I think initially when he lost last year, it's like, wait, why would you do this? You just buried him, and somehow they figured out a way to make it an even bigger story, and he goes in this year an even bigger star, to the point where, like, again, casual fans are interested. Someone like me who doesn't watch it, I'm like, I'm probably gonna watch it this year because I want to see this. It's like they've done a great job building that up. But it's like, you don't want The Rock mucking it up. But yeah, Justin, what were you gonna say?
Said, yeah, Joe, when you mentioned that, it reminded me of New Coke, like when they made the new recipe for Coke in the late 80s, and people hated it so much. Like Coke was sort of like Pepsi was the new thing, well, it wasn't new. It's funny. It's almost as old as Coke, but it was getting popular. They had big ads, and it seemed like this, they had, it was popular. And then Coke was like, let's change the recipe. And there was a revolt, and it wound up making Coke Classic more popular than ever. And like, it was completely an accident. And there's still rumors today that they did it on purpose. I don't think they did. And I definitely don't think that this was planned by, the powers that be in the WWE. Yeah. I think that they thought, well, this is going to be big. Let's bring The Rock back. And then the fans revolted. And then they were like, well, you know what? Let's course correct. And I still think they're going to come up. I still think that The Rock will be involved somehow, and not just in the promotion. So they're going to work it in. They're going to have a clever, and I'm sure there's lots of fan theories, but it also brings it to the sort of the important aspect of a WWE fan fiction, where like the fans are controlling the narrative. They're almost writing it themselves. Well, it's really not completely, but it's the fact that they would have that level of power to do something like that. It's interesting. It's an evolution.
It's not the first time. Like, there have been situations where the fans have kind of decided we're going to get behind somebody. And
Daniel Bryan.
Yeah, Daniel Bryan. It happened with Kofi Kingston at some point. So they will get behind somebody. The difference now actually is that with Vince McMahon not in the picture, I think that they're much more likely to listen. Like, I think Vince McMahon would, like with some guys, it's like, all right, you know what? I'll toss it a token and then take my title back and that's it. Where I actually think that they're listening and they realize, and I think, it's interesting because the fans are kind of part of it. They've always have been, but yeah, they're definitely like, it's they're listening. And this was a situation where I think, they ran the risk of, alienating the fans, and at least it's good that they're leaning into it. And it's like, okay, there's something here. It's just figuring out like what this thing is to make sure that the kind of Cody Rhodes story ends properly and not, in a way that the, fans are disappointed by. Because again, if you got me wanting to watch it, like that's good. Because I'm definitely like the type of fan that they I think I'm the type of fan that they thought they'd get with The Rock. But
You're
I don't care
a casual,
about that.
Ryan.
Yeah,
You're filthy casual.
I'm not even a casual. I listen to podcasts that happen to talk about what happens.
Weird.
So
I know, it's interesting. Yeah. More interested in that. Ryan, you know what? It reminded me of a little bit. Remember a lot of the shows in the sort of getting towards the towards the mid, like 93, 94, when Hogan was getting booed a lot.
Yeah,
where they were starting to really boo him, and look, that was certainly before, right, the internet explosion, where you were where things like that could spread, and you wonder if they listened to the fans then.
Yeah.
So it just sort of reminded me.
They didn't.
I
mean, that's what happened. Hogan left, went to WCW, and the NWO starts, and that changes wrestling.
That changes stuff.
I think another time where they didn't listen was John Cena, because there was a point where John Cena was getting, booed out of the building at time, by fans, and they just kind of held on to it. Like, nope, we're going to keep him as a face. And
but that was Vince, and I was thinking this while you guys were talking. For AEW, which is the next leading competitor, the worst thing that could have happened to them was this merger between UFC and WWE, and at the same time, Vince being removed from power, because now it gave the WWE like almost a little more legitimacy. where they seem like an actual organization and it's not just play fighting with predetermined results. They feel more like they're getting a bit of a rub from being associated with the UFC. And part of the reason why they didn't listen to the fans back in the day and up until recent was Vince thought he knew better than the people that were paying for the product. Exactly. This is what's going to work, and we're going to push this, and this guy's got to get over. And now that that's gone, they will be able to follow the trends, and they will be able to listen to the audience. And I think that'll only benefit them in the long run.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, give me interesting. I'm going to follow this because I do want to see how The Rock handles it. He seems to have a fairly massive ego, and like, does he lean into this and become a heel? Like, do we get like The Rock is the heel, or do
I think ultimately, I think Cody's going to save him. I think that The Rock's going to get injured and be out of the match, but Cody will save him in the meantime, and he pushes Cody forward to go finish the story.
Yeah, that should be interesting. So the other story, Justin, did you watch House of the Dragon at all? No, okay, so this won't matter much to you then, but with Miley Alcock, who played Princess Rhaenyra young Princess Rhaenyra in House of the Dragon, was recently cast as Supergirl in the new James Gunn universe. I think that's awesome because she's amazing. I think she was one of the best actresses or best actors on that season of House of the Dragon, which Justin, you definitely should watch leading up to season 2. She's phenomenal. Like so much so that like what the show does is like they jump in time, so they cast a different actress for her, and I kind of wish they didn't because she's just so good.
She was much better than the person that took over.
Yeah. No, she was amazing. So like, I'm kind of sad that she's not in that role, but I'm 100% for her as Supergirl. I think that's an awesome casting choice. Any thoughts on your end, Cinik?
Yeah, I can see it. I mean, when it comes to casting, to jump over to Marvel, I mean, all we keep hearing about the Fantastic Four is it's going to be Pedro Pascal. I don't love that casting.
Agreed.
But I've been wrong 1,000 times about casting. I finally see the movie, and the movie's fucking great, and the guy nails it, and I'm willing to give anybody an opportunity. I don't play fantasy casting. I don't write fan fiction. I just look at the product in front of me and whether the person did a great job with what they had to work with. Sometimes they don't, and sometimes they don't have a lot to work with. I think she's going to kill it. She's a great actress, and we'll, in the end, we can only judge it by results, right?
Yeah. Another Brit playing one of our American heroes. I would know she's not a Brit. I think she's from Australia, if I'm not mistaken, but another non-American playing one of our American heroes. So another huge news story in podcasting is Joe Rogan signing a new contract with Spotify, but this time, when Rogan signed his initial contract with Spotify, it was something I think it was like $250 million, but he was exclusive to Spotify. And this time around, the wording is it's a multi-year contract worth up to $250 million, but it's not exclusive anymore. So now he's able to publish his show back onto like YouTube and Apple Podcasts, and it seems as if it seems as if Spotify is getting out of that game of doing exclusive things. I think it makes sense because the biggest players in like the podcast, game are YouTube and Apple, right? Like and you just aren't going to get the same kind of visibility if you're not on those platforms. So I guess it's some kind of situation where they're paying them and some mix of like ad revenue that they'll get in from the show being, played on those other platforms. But yeah, another massive contract for who would have thought, in the early 2000s that the commentator on the UFC broadcasts would be, one of the biggest and most influential media personalities in the world.
It's crazy.
Well, it's like this. First off, I don't understand why they're giving him money. Like, if he's no longer exclusive to Spotify, is the ad revenue that big that it's going to offset a couple $100 million to Joe Rogan? Like, I don't understand why they signed the contract.
Yeah.
If they're still going to get the benefit of having him on Spotify, then
that's a good question.
Yeah. Like, how does it work financially for them?
Yeah.
I understood the last contract because it was their exclusive, and you had to go there to hear Joe Rogan, so you had to use Spotify. But I don't understand how now it benefits them by them keeping them on. So, but I'm not a financial analyst.
Well, so that's the thing. It's like the language has been up to $250 million. So I guess there's certain levels of incentives. It makes, I guess, from their perspective, as they still seem to be in the business of having Spotify, creators that are tied to them. I guess the connection to him is important enough that I guess it's some matter of the ad revenue must be high enough that they, that they benefit somehow from it. But yeah, you're right. It seems like a weird deal to make if he can be on any platform, because he would be on Spotify anyway. So why pay that much? But there must, I don't know if maybe there's some kind of a deal where maybe they get to publish first, or, they get some amount of the ad revenue or whatever it is. This guy has made $500 million, for just talking into a microphone, to random people. It's interesting. I'm not the biggest fan of his, but wow, it's like an insane success story.
I know it sure is.
Well, just getting
I just detest Spotify. Just I think they are one of the biggest, most evil empires, right? Basically taking just advantage of content creators, musicians, artists of all types, podcasters, right? And using their platform to make billions and billions of dollars and not pay anyone except the top 0.1%.
Yeah.
It's really disgusting what they do, right? It's so I won't go off on it, but it's like, think about it. Even as the Gymwits, we had hundreds of a lot of streams, right? We never saw a penny for it. What was their excuse? Oh well, if you're not a musician, then, or if you're not a music artist, well, you're not. It's like, no, we're creating content. But even the music artists don't get paid. They have hundreds and hundreds of thousands, millions of streams, and they get 2 cents for it just as well. And they're making money off of them. They're really
no, this is not to rationalize it, but that seems to be the tech industry, right?
Oh, of course.
Give people stuff for free at the expense of some other people, and you just hope that the larger, the people that are getting it for free don't value the getting it for free part more than they're upset by the fact that other people are getting screwed over, and that seems to be like almost every tech company.
Sure.
Right? and it's unfortunate.
Not to jump down the Joe Rogan rabbit hole too deep, but I don't know Justin's relationship status, but us being in happy relationships, did you know that Joe Rogan is a red flag on dating sites? Like it's right up there with voting for Trump or any number of toxic male traits.
Yeah.
If you listen to Joe Rogan, some women don't want anything to do with you.
Yeah.
I read that and I was shocked. I didn't think it had devolved into all that, but apparently it has.
Yeah, no, and it used to not be like he used to be. He used to be, someone you listen to. It's like, all right, you listen to me. You're all right. You're into mixed martial arts, right? Yeah. That's what it is. Or or you're into some sort of, the truth politics or something like that. Yeah. And then as he's gotten more and more bonkers, and I don't know if he actually believes everything or if he just does it for the listenership, but I don't know, but regardless, he's putting out a lot of bonkers stuff.
Yeah. So the thing is that there was a time where I always felt like, okay, when he interviews the right person, I like listening to him because he will ask the question not often, but he'll ask the questions that a lot of people might feel like too dumb to ask, or they don't want to appear dumb by asking it. So kind of sometimes I would like him interviewing certain people because I did feel like he'll ask certain things that maybe others won't. But I always felt like he was a little bit like, a little bit like thin-skinned. Didn't take criticism very well, but at least he had a variety of guests on. So he had a lot of interesting people. Some some were really weird and wacky and out there, but then he'd have a lot of interesting people. And then he just kind of made a shift over the last few years that was kind of, it was much less diverse of a group of people that he had on the show. It became a bit of an echo chamber. And then, he just kind of started spewing his own weird things, and he became like obsessed with certain subjects that it just became like, why am I listening to this? It doesn't, it even went for me past the point of like, I'll listen if it's the right guest, to just like, I'm just not going to listen. Like I don't, I just don't find, there's too many hours in the day for me to waste listening to, to him. But again, success story nonetheless. So couple other stories. First up, I'm not a big Super Bowl or football fan, I guess. But Cinik, you're a football fan, right?
Yes.
What's your Super Bowl pick? I have no idea what's going on. So give me your quick Super Bowl. Well,
the Chiefs have a real Patriots vibe anymore, and they have a second gear when it comes to big games. And I just feel like until somebody can knock them off in in that platform, I think you've got to go with them. San Francisco, fantastic team, very well rounded. They could put up the points. They can pass. They can run. They could play defense. They could do it all. But Patrick Mahomes, to me, is an X factor, and I think that the Chiefs will walk away with this.
Yeah.
I'll tell you my thought on it. I felt so bad for the Detroit fans. I'm not a huge football fan, but like Detroit, like talk about a city that has just been reamed over the years for the, in sports, and especially like they would have just loved so much. Look, the 49ers have had a lot of success, not recently, but I mean, they've been good, but obviously not like what they did in the 1980s and through the 90s. But man, like Detroit, I don't like to second guess coaching decisions. Right. And I don't like to say that, a team should have done that. They are professional. They're on the highest level. They know what they're doing. But I just remember like watching that game and saying, this doesn't feel right the whole time. And I don't like to second guess. That's my whole pick on it. Yeah, I agree with Cinik. I think that the Chiefs are going to, fifth gear it right when it matters the most, and they're gonna pull it out like a dynasty. But man, I just felt bad for the people of Detroit. That it would have meant so much to get to have their team in the Super Bowl. It was
if we're being fair,
brutal
Justin,
the way they coughed that game away.
If we're being fair, I believe their coach is named Dan Campbell. And he lived by those decisions all year long. He played with house money like he was on a hot streak all year, and it worked. I mean, they won a lot of games. They relied on Jared Goff. That was his guy. It worked. It just didn't work when they needed it to. So it's like it falls under
coaching, though.
Yeah,
if that you have to know when to go with it. When to make a tough decision.
Well, I think
you're not wrong. You're not wrong. I agree with you.
I think he just went with what got him to the dance, and what got him to the dance was these high risk situations. But some of them were near foolish. It's one of those situations though where they hadn't won a playoff game in forever. They hadn't won a road playoff game in even longer. So it's one of those where it's don't be sad that it's over, but be happy that it happened. And just so you know, ownership rewarded the loyal fan base for sticking around as they finally won a couple games in the playoffs. Some of their ticket prices went up by 85%. Wow. So season ticket holders, you're welcome. Yeah. But they have a bright future. They got a good team. Yeah. They got a good core. They'll be back. But in the big situations, he can't make choices like he did because they're low percentage choices.
Yeah, you have to. Yeah, no. And I guess you learn. You live and you learn, right?
Yeah, he's still relatively a brand new coach. Like he's only been doing it, I think, 3 or 4 years in that position. So they're not done. I mean, as long as they keep the nucleus intact, they're going to make more runs.
All right. Well, we got one more news story, then we'll get to our review. So, Gina Carano. So speaking of, we've been bringing up WWE a lot, and bringing up their partner, the UFC, or well, I guess not with UFC anymore, but or was she ever? Wait, no, she never fought in the UFC. Actually,
she never fought in the UFC.
That's right. So anyway, so Gina Carano,
Strikeforce, I think.
Yeah, she did. So obviously, big, kind of women's MMA pioneer, who made the transition over into acting. And was recently, a major player in Star Wars: The Mandalorian, but due to her kind of, social media, as many, that becomes their downfall. She kind of spread some crazy views, anti-vax stuff, election fraud stuff, transphobia, like anti-Semitism. Like her Twitter is just filled with just insanity. And eventually, Disney dropped her. Now, I'm not sure if they fired her or if they just didn't renew her contract, but they basically, it's like, look, she's no longer in the role in The Mandalorian. And they went on, on with their life. And this week it was announced that she's filed a lawsuit against Disney and is asking for them to either reinstate her or compensate her for, the, I guess, income lost and emotional damage. Because look, at the end of the day, like her acting, she's not a great actress. And her acting career has not really gone very far since Disney. Like she had a nice situation, and if she kind of would have just been a little more judicious in her social media choices, she probably would have kept the job. But she's suing Disney for her job back. What do you guys think about that?
Well, with the backing of Elon Musk as well.
Yes, that's right. Oh yeah, I forgot that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah. So yeah, Elon Musk is backing this, but yeah, it's like, it's kind of crazy. Like you can't, they're well within their rights, unless there was something contractual that we don't know about, to remove her from that. Every contract has a, what's the clause? Like the
morality clause.
Morals
yeah,
clause.
exactly. And like, look, and it's like, if you look at some of the posts, it's like, one after the next, like, yeah, this is Disney we're talking about. Yeah, they will get rid of you if you do that kind of craziness. And if you want your job, you have a choice. Like, you could, if you want to be able to say whatever you want, that's totally fine, right? But like, you're not free from consequences, and that's the case. It's like, if you're going to say whatever you want, you have the right to do that, but you can't be upset if a company, especially a company like Disney, is like, you know what, we don't want anything to do with you, and that is what it is. And I not that she was missed all that much.
Well, first thought is I would seriously doubt that Disney would fire her without grounds, right? Because she knows that if there is even the slightest chance that she could sue them for an early terminate, whatever it is, that they wouldn't do it. They would find they would find another way to do it. So I'm sure that they either evoke the morality clause or they had a legitimate reason, and you could be certain that it's in their contract that they have the stipulations to be able to drop someone if they need to, or maybe you're right, maybe they just didn't renew it. So, but of course, it makes sense that she's going to sue. Why? What else does she have? And especially if someone else is,
backing it,
from the bill. So
yeah, well, it kind of reminds me of when Peter Thiel paid for Hulk Hogan to sue Gawker. Yeah. It's kind of like the same thing where somebody's got an axe to grind, so they're going to use the legal system for some retribution. I have a feeling that they let her deal run out, so there is no termination.
Yeah,
they just didn't bother to renew her. But listen, when you get to the point, and Ryan, I know you've been in, not to go back to the relationship, but you've been married for quite a while. And this is probably the best relationship you ever had. And when you get the best thing in your life, regardless of it, whether it's a relationship, a house, a car, but it's something you really treasure, you take care of it.
Yeah.
You do everything you can to preserve it. You do everything you can to make sure it continues. And she was warned repeatedly by the people at Disney to knock it off. And she chose to, freedom of speech. Freedom of speech does not come without consequences. Yeah. And it's the same thing. I work for a public entity. If I go say something stupid as a representative of my company, I'm going to be fired. It's happened. I believe somebody burned a Quran down at the World Trade Center and was fired from my company. Yeah. And gave an interview saying who he was and what he did, which was incredibly stupid. Yeah.
People
so
dumb.
She knew what she was doing. Yeah. She knew she wasn't going to get, they were going to give her her own show.
Yeah.
She was headed towards her own show. So to throw that in the dirt after, she's not going to go back to fighting, obviously too old and not in the same shape that she was. So acting was the thing. She got the role of a lifetime on probably one of the most popular series, out there at the time. And she threw it in the dirt and then got upset that it got dirty. Yeah. So, who's at fault here? It's definitely not Disney.
Exactly. No, it's like, that's exactly it. It's like, there's always going to be consequences. And if you're, if you're a public representative of a company, it's like if I get the job of a lifetime, and they give me chances, it's like, hey, don't say this, be, kind of relax on whatever it is. Like you have a choice, right? Like, it's like, okay, I can die on that sword or, I could die on that hill. But then, like, that's my own fault. Like, then I value being able to say whatever I want to say. What's worse is just it's all mostly BS that she was saying. So it's not even like it was like, there's anything actual of value, But, now she's not in the show. And it's like, it's not like she's not going to be missed. No one cares, and she's not, she was fine in that role. She's, has the physicality.
Oh, and whatever, I loved her in that role. Yeah. And I don't think I was all for them recasting her only because I thought you needed that character in the story. Mm-hmm. There's other actresses out there that probably could almost fit that bill. It's not a lot of heavy lifting, but, fuck, you could get Ronda Rousey and throw her in a black wig and it would just be as fine. You know what I mean? But it's just unfortunate the way it went down, and she's got no one to blame but herself.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's it for the news for this week. Cut a couple things out that I will probably try to throw on next week. But so yeah, let's get to our main topic. So, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, the review. So show that I honestly, for me, it wasn't super highly anticipated. Obviously, I'm a big fan of Donald Glover. I think Atlanta is one of the, just one of the best shows, of the last, I don't know, 15, 20 years. It's just such a great show, so smart. And I love that as a writer, he's not afraid to just go for it, and as we've talked about plenty of times, like I like people that take big swings, and I think he's the type of writer that does that. So before we get to the show, did either of you guys watch the movie, or do you remember the original movie? When you heard about this, were you, and was your initial thought like, okay, that's dumb, I don't care, I don't need a series, or was that something that actually was exciting when you heard, oh, there's going to be a Mr. and Mrs. Smith TV series?
I mean, I'm just over remakes, right? Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. I don't care what it is or how much I liked the original property. It lacks originality. I did like the idea of a spy drama with a couple. Yeah. I don't think we get enough of that, and to me, that's a lot of fun. Like I even enjoyed this last Mission Impossible. I thought it was fun. Okay. I'm not a big Bond fan, but I do like spy drama. So I was interested to see what it was, but at the same time, let's just come up with something else. Stop living in the past and trying to make money off of things that have already been done.
So I was thinking the same. I was thinking the same thing. It's like the remake, but the modern remake is it's basically what it is. It's something totally different that just goes off of a name that people are familiar with. Yeah. So it stopped bothering me as much as it used to, because it's basically a different. It's a totally different show. It's a different thing altogether. But yeah, it is annoying, the idea of what you have to use a name that people are familiar with to get people in. It's almost like it's a marketing thing. It's like, they could have just done the show with a completely different name, but it wouldn't have had the same buzz. So it's annoying. I get it. I get it.
I think that's fair. I think there are certain times where there's a reboot or remake of a show or movie, and it's like, why didn't you just call, like, I don't like this because you called it X, Y, and Z. If you would have called it something else, I would have been perfectly fine with it. Yeah. And I think there are situations where that's the case. In this case, I think it made sense. And I like that the show, and so, okay, so just talk a little bit. So a little bit of spoilers. I know that Cinik, you're up to you're in the middle of the series, and Justin, you've got one episode to go. I finished it, so I'm gonna be careful not to spoil it for both of you guys as well. Spoil things. But what I like about the premise of the show, so in the movie, they're married and they're both spies, but they don't know that they're spies until third act, and then they're fighting each other. So what I like about this is it basically turned that on its head. Like right off the bat, they know they're married, they know they're spies, they don't know each other. And so that made it really interesting, because then you have this whole relationship drama that unfolds completely different from what we saw in the movie. So I like the setup for that. And so with that, actually, so we're kind of going through kind of how I format my reviews is I kind of go through the five categories, and then we'll just kind of talk about each. So first part is the story. And so in this case, Cinik, what were your thoughts on the story? How so far, how are things unfolding, and are you excited about what's coming up?
Well, I can tell you that the first episode alone, kind of slow. Yeah. And I almost checked out, but the explosion at the end really rocked me back into the story, because I was like, oh, I don't know, maybe this was not a great idea. I'll power through because we're going to podcast on it. But, that turn brought me back in. The story so far has been good. I know you're a huge Donald Glover fanatic, Ryan, but I just feel like a lot of his characters are derivative of, I felt like I was watching Earn in a spy drama. He his mannerisms, the way he moves through the world just feels the same in every single role. And I'm not saying that there's no range. I'm just saying that I think somebody else needs to write for him. You know what I mean? He's a fucking talented writer, but I just feel that it felt too much of like what I've seen before from him. So, the sweaters, the whole fucking deal. It felt like towards the end of Atlanta where they actually had money and started dressing up a little bit. And, so for me, that took me out of it a little bit. But I mean, he's been great in the role. I mean, he's a great actor. He's a great writer. I've got no problems with him. But that was the one thing that kind of stuck me a little bit, is that it just felt like more of the same from him. Not incredibly crazy about what's the co-star's name? Maya, what is it? Erskine?
Yeah, let me. I'll get you that name right now. I should have. Mr. Smith.
Yeah, Maya Erskine.
Okay, I don't feel like she's believable in the role, and she just seems like every annoying girl that I've ever dated. Like,
okay, so hold on that, because we're gonna get to that. We'll talk more about that on performances, because this is interesting, because I have a difference in opinion on that. But yeah, now Justin, what are your thoughts so far on the story?
So
now you're up to the end. So like, are you
I'm up
like,
to basically
I gotta
the
watch
end.
that. I'm excited for that last episode. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a tale of two halves of a series. First few episodes, it started off a little slow, but yeah, I was very interested in the moving of the plot. And then the show for me took a turn where the story completely stalls out and it becomes more about their interpersonal relationship, which to me started becoming insufferable after
Oh
a
wow,
while.
okay.
So I enjoyed it up to an extent, and then it kept going and
Interesting.
kept
Okay.
going and kept going and kept going.
I don't think you're like.
So I enjoyed a lot of it, and a lot. Look, I find a lot of it was I don't. This is more about performances, so I'll discuss this in performances. But that was the thing. I really enjoyed the story, and then I felt that it stalled a little bit as it went too much, especially with the therapist episode.
Okay, yeah,
really was sort of the dividing line. That's the fly.
So that's
episode
funny.
for
Okay,
me. That's
all
the
right.
fly episode.
Wait, although to be fair, I love the fly episode. You did not. So so it's interesting.
I didn't mind it. I liked it more than the fly episode.
So
but
now this is also. I'd be interested. So you haven't watched Atlanta. I'd be interested to see your thoughts on Atlanta, because I think what happens. And Cinik, you're getting right there. So to me, there's a couple episodes that are coming up. There's a therapist episode, and
fly episode.
And then there's a couple that they unfold. It's like things slow down, so like it's not as much action, even though there is, and it is more about their relationship. But to me, that's what makes the show work. And I'll talk a little more when we get to performances, but I think that their chemistry is really good. And like anybody that's been in a long-term relationship, I think there's a lot of
performances,
the ups and downs of that. So I think I get the critique or that frustration of like the show slowing, right? You have this spy drama, and then it shifts from spy drama to like relationship, kind of comedy.
So I get to watch 4 episodes of a relationship drama a relationship I don't think they should be in the first place.
What works to me though is the writing, because like so much of it is really funny and it's self-aware. And I think there are those moments that are like, yeah, like there's again, I won't give it away, but there's a couple of moments where like they start making like they start beating each other up over things that they say.
It's so accurate. It hurts. Like,
so that's the thing,
and we've all had those.
Yeah.
Like, it was great. And I will. Is this part of story? Would this be part of story?
Yeah, this is part of story, right?
Okay.
All right. So like, if you think of story for me is like, obviously the overall story, but also we're talking about the writing, the dialogue. Okay. And so that's, for me, that's the thing. It's like, it's taking a swing. And that's where the I do get it. Like, it does kind of have a lot of Donald Glover's kind of fingerprints on it, right? Because in Atlanta, as Atlanta got more popular, I think there would just be episodes of Atlanta that didn't have any of the main cast or any of the main actors or have anything to do with the story that you've been following for years. And it's off-putting for some people, but for me, I was like, I love it because they're just going for it. And I think there was some of that sprinkled in. So I get being a little bit frustrated by it, but I was okay because and we'll get to that. So let's go right into that. So, right, because I think we can't talk about the things that I liked about how the story unfolds without going into performances. So, Justin, what were your thoughts on the leads? And then the other part, what are your thoughts on the leads and the performances for them? And then the second part I'll say is one of the things that the show does is it unfolds like an episode of the week, and every week, every episode, we get some kind of cameo. So your favorite cameo too. So why don't you tell me the leads, your thoughts, and then what's your favorite cameo so far?
Yeah. All right. So I'll start with the cameo because that's a little bit lighter. I like the Totoro.
Okay.
I thought I like it. He goes off when he's speaking. There is some good writing there. He's sort of this sad dude who's like has strange fetishes. I thought that was pretty good. And yes, the acting to me I think is excellent.
Yeah.
I think they play their parts really well. Cinik, I'm going to disagree with you that she is that annoying person. Like sometimes she obviously is a complicated character, and even beginning says, "Look, I have antisocial." Like she prefaces, I have antisocial aspects to my personality. And I think that exactly. I'm sure you love it. That the performances are great, and the writing for that. I think there's some parts that are that are like so spot on. It's very millennial relationship. Yeah. Like a lot of it's like we get that, right? Like the types of things that they discuss is like, oh, but this is how I felt.
The whole chat about Maya was like, oh my God, like that was amazing. I think it was episode 1 or 2.
And just like you have a beautiful place. So like they go over like the apartments. It's a big part of it. Oh, and like talking about things like that. And it's funny. We've had so many. I've found myself watching and being like, whoa, I've had these discussions. We've had these interactions with other couples. So that aspect of it, I thought was spot on. But the issue for me is that it was just too much of it. Like if maybe one episode too much of it, and it just kept going to the point where the main plot wasn't advancing enough. So I would have just like to see a little bit of that pulled back and a little bit more of the plot advancement. But I did, and a lot of it was very funny. I did think, and I thought the acting was very good from both of them.
So Cinik, tell me, so favorite guest performance so far, and then what your thoughts on their chemistry?
Well, there hasn't been too many, so I got to go with John Turturro as well.
Okay.
One of my favorite actors since Oh Brother. Just every time I see him, like he makes me laugh. He just inadvertently, nonchalantly makes me laugh whenever I see him do anything. And he really shined in that short period that he was on the show until he became compost. But I mean, what you guys are saying isn't encouraging me, because this isn't a question of will they or won't they. I know they will, and I don't want them to. Like I really, I hope an accident bestows one of them, namely her, and he goes on and continues this drama by himself, and maybe they assign him another Mrs. Smith, because their relationship to me is
actually
just
funny that you say that.
It's super problematic. Like the shit she pulls. Like I do like the pranks, like when she tried to convince him that his ex had one hand. I love that. I thought it was fucking hilarious,
so good,
because it threw him. Like he didn't automatically like, oh, you're screwing with me. He had to sit there and think about it and go through her old social media posts to make sure that she had two hands. So I did love that. But the rest of the relationship, it just mirrors every bad relationship I've ever been in. And I just don't find, I find when you use trauma to hurt other people or use your trauma on other people, it becomes toxic.
Yeah. You know what? It's funny that you mentioned that. I was watching it with my girlfriend, and she actually said something very similar. She was like, the meanness of it is like sort of off-putting how actually mean they get.
Yeah.
So
so I think that is fair. Like I think I think the performances are good. I do think Glover's he's reserved. But I like I like his performance in it, though he's not, it's not like he's showcasing a ton of range. It's not that much different, like you mentioned, from Earn, but I still think he's doing a good job. And I do think they have very good chemistry, both ways, right? Like when they're falling for each other, but also when they're at each other's throats, which it gets even worse. And yeah, like I would say it is entertaining. So definitely watch it, but it does, it is a will they or won't they, but you legitimately by the end are not sure if they will. And I think that does work. And and by the end of it, it's like, yeah, is a relationship like this doomed to fail? Like, is she a sociopath? And is she just focused on her career? Does she really care about him? I think that the show does a very good job as it goes forward of getting you to question that, to the very point where you're like, I don't know if this relationship is going to work. Like, it may not, because they're on completely different places. And I do agree that maybe it is a little bit mean spirited with some of this stuff, and it again only gets worse from where you're at. But
in the episode Double Date, it was one of the great portions of that, and that episode was a little odd, but was when they dropped the bomb that, hey, there is no out in this.
Yeah.
Like when they started laughing, when we're like, well, we're just going to make enough money and go our separate way. Like, there is no, you're literally stuck with this disagreeable, mean, traumatized person. Like, there is no out. So,
well, speaking of cameos, that's what brings you back to that. The very first cameo in this show is Skarsgård in the very beginning. And you like, it's like, I remember at first, I'm like, what is this? Like, what's this little prologue? Like, why are they there? Why haven't we heard from them yet? Because typically a scene like that, okay, they die and maybe they show up and then we find out it's in the future or something. And then it's like, oh, they're just another Mr. and Mrs. Smith that tried to escape. And that was the whole purpose of us getting them, and getting that kind of, getting that cameo. But yeah, that and my favorite, there are a lot of really good cameos. I like Paul Dano in it, just because like there's an expectation that he's one thing, but he may or may not be. He's just the hot neighbor, which I also think is hilarious, because like he's not the he's not your typically attractive, like handsome leading man, but she keeps referring to him as the hot neighbor, is pretty funny.
Speaking of Paul Dano, not to go off on a tangent, but if you guys haven't seen Dumb Money yet, you should, because it's fucking excellent. Yeah. And he's the star of that movie. That's about the whole shorting GameStop thing and the hedge fund guys. I feel like really good movie.
It's good. Okay, I'll definitely check that out. Speaking of good movies, actually, I was watching. I'm not going to go in a long tangent on it, but I watched, and now I'm going to forget the name of it, with Paul Giamatti. What was that movie that just came? He's nominated for an Oscar for it. I will tell you, and then
while he's doing that, Justin, I heard something depressing over the week. Gwen Stefani is now older than Wilford Brimley was when he did Cocoon.
Well, you look, people are not as old as they used to be.
So I agreed. She's a very young 50-year-old beautiful woman, but it's still, it makes me feel super old knowing that she's now older than the people from Cocoon.
And things like that happen every day.
Yep.
It's like, wait, this person is older than this was when they were doing this. Now is that possible?
The Holdovers is the movie that he's in. It's really, really good. But a little quick quick tangent. All right. So next, okay. So let's see. Next up is next category is audiovisual. Not a ton here. I thought, like, so personally, I'll give you my thoughts and I'll ask you guys, but I thought it was shot well. It's, very stylish. I did like the score. Like, I think I like the music.
Love the music.
Is really well done. Yeah. I think it's the same composer that he uses for a lot of his stuff, but excellent score.
Good soundtrack too.
Yes.
They chose
absolutely. I've heard mixed things about the fight choreography. I thought it was fine. I don't think there was anything super special about it. I kind of liked that they both seemed like kind of competent, but not quite like, like clearly they had some training, but not a ton. And so I like that the fight scenes. Sorry if you hear my dog in the background. I like the fight scenes weren't heavily choreographed with them like doing crazy things. It was like they were just kind of figuring things out in the moment. The only issue is that if that's even anybody, they're dead at some point very quickly. Yeah. So it was like they were very competent when they needed to be, but then like they would also kind of be kind of incompetent at times. So I guess that was a little inconsistent. But yeah, you guys' thoughts on any audiovisual on the show?
Well, the about the fight choreography, I didn't love the Jackie Chan style comedy stuff while fighting. Right? It's like it's not it's out of place for the show. Right, because the action scenes at first started were legitimate action scenes, and it sort of devolved into this whole, like Jackie Chan, like making wisecracks while you're fighting and being super calm. Like that, there was a one chase scene where they're getting shot at with machine guns, and they're like cool as making jokes and cool. That annoys me unless the show or the movie is specifically with that in mind, like the Expendables or something, where you expect that to happen, where it's such a farce that you're like, okay, they're making wisecracks while bullets are flying over their head. To me, that wasn't what this show was. And then it didn't start that way. And then they started doing that. And it just, to me, I didn't really love that. The rest of the fight choreography stuff, it's fine. Yeah, I saw they're like competent. They're not, Jack Reacher or something like that, right? They're sort of good at it, and the fight scenes and the chase scenes are all pretty good. Some nice visuals, and I really like the score and the music. I think that's really well done.
Yeah, your thoughts?
Two of the stronger parts of the show.
Yeah.
I don't mind the fight scenes being a little sloppy because it is kind of like first day at spy camp. Yeah. Where they're new at their jobs. So I get kind of sometimes it being, adequate, other times it looking a little sloppy. And it was the same during the third episode, The First Vacation, where Ern walked up and smoked like 5 people, but then couldn't hit the other 2 guys that were like 10 feet away from him. And, ended up getting pinned down in the back, which that was kind of a cool save with the snowmobile too. Like I did like that kind of that turn of events, but I mean the score was fine. The visually it's been shot well. I mean, I wouldn't expect anything less. It kind of goes along with the whole spy drama.
I mean, clearly they had a lot of money because they shot on several different locations. I mean, they had
the
ski trip. I think
they're world traveling.
Yeah. I mean, the shot stuff on the Highline.
I do like I like the New York stuff.
Yeah,
that they show a lot of cool stuff in New York,
and it's actually in New York, unlike Reacher, which is clearly shot in like Vancouver or Toronto or something. That's always a plus. Like if a show is in New York and it actually is in New York, and different spots, like they were in Brooklyn,
different
I think
spots
Queens at points, and it's like okay, this is legitimately like a New York show.
They referenced a place where I once went for like a Caribbean, or maybe it was Jamaican food. Like I remember, like when we were watching, it was like, oh, we were there. It's like a sort of an obscure place in Flatbush that it was like they chose, like they had to know that place was sort of a neighborhood gem.
Yeah,
that I was there. I was like, what's to eat? And this was sort of like a gem. We're like, we eat there. It was really, it was really, it was really good food. And they references like, all right, that's pretty
legit.
cool.
No, that's always good.
It's kind of like them trying to sell The Last of Us, where they're like, 10 miles outside of Boston, and meanwhile you're in the Vancouver mountains. Yeah. Like it's so beautiful. It's like Massachusetts doesn't look like this. I'm sorry, kids.
Yeah, no, seriously. All right, and then next up, so we got 2 more categories. So internal logic and consistency. So basically, were there any nitpicks for you? Like, do you have any nitpicks or any things like in world that bothered you, where it's like, the logic, we accept the logic of the world that there's some crazy spy organization, but like, were there things that just kind of annoyed you or were nitpicky for you?
I really didn't have any. My biggest problem with the relationship or with the show is the relationship. Other than that, I mean, I think it's interesting how they get their missions. I think it's interesting that they have like a fail ratio that's going to be away and above their head. But no, I mean, as far as consistency, logically, none of that really, none of it played into it for me.
Yeah, it's like, my biggest problem with the show is what the show is completely based on.
Yes,
not too big of a deal. Yeah, Justin.
Just a tiny critique.
There was, I didn't. I could suspend my disbelief. I think there was a couple weird things that annoyed me, like with the bit of a spoiler alert, where I forgot the name of the actor, where his wife is kidnapped. He's like, no go. I'm not gonna give up the shares. Of course why wouldn't he? Like that, it just didn't make it was weird. And then she accepted him for it. Like it says, "Oh, you really love." That was a weak
Okay, yeah,
That
no,
was
that's fair.
weak. And
I
then
agree.
similar with their had the double date, and then they just got drawn there and they just hopped in the helicopter and the other was like, oh no, you go. It's like, I guess they
I
were
didn't love
planning
that.
that. It was weird. It's just like, wait, we're going, you're not going, and it just happened. And look, I get the whole thing where sometimes you've been drinking and they sucker you into something, and it happened like that, and it was just strange. And then they didn't really discuss what the mission was down there, and it just sort of happened all very quickly. It felt weak that a couple of those things, but that is nitpicky. Yeah. So and funny because I was looking for things to nitpick, and I really didn't. There wasn't too much besides a few little things that I thought was weak. But besides that, also,
I would agree.
Yeah, nothing. I could just start going back in my mind and start thinking like they're high level, they're spies, and they wouldn't realize that they were being recorded during their sessions. Like they said, we're being recorded, and we just forgot about that. Like really weak. But besides that's it.
I would say a lot of the spy stuff kind of takes a back seat to the relationship. So it's kind of like they very clearly spent a lot of time writing and making sure that everything about the relationship and their connection and their dialogue was on point, right? Because there's just so many great lines between them about, especially when you mentioned the double date episode. There's a great reference to it. I think it's in the last episode. There's a great moment where they're referencing that, and it's just beautiful. So there's so much spent on the relationship.
Yeah.
But then a lot of the spy stuff kind of it seems like it was like sloppily thrown together, like without much thought. Because I totally agree. I think like, that whole mission was kind of weird. Like why'd they accept? Why'd they go? How'd they get out? So some things kind of just get glossed over, just for the sake of it. Where I think they spent a lot more time kind of building those relationships. And so the final category is the feels. So the feels basically is just, did you feel anything? Was it, and again, you're not near the end yet, so it might be a little bit harder for you guys to say for sure, but like, funny, angry, sad, like, how are the feels so far for the show?
I put myself in his position, and if I was stuck with that woman for the rest of my life, we might fail those next two missions quickly, so I could just get an easy out. Just didn't love any aspect of that whole relationship from from her just continuously nitpicking at him about everything, every little thing that he did or didn't do. My big thing is communication. And I'm not the world's best communicator, but my big thing is if you have something going on internally, you need to let it out and we can discuss it. Regardless of what it is, we can get over it. And watching her do things like wanting to be held, but then, seeing that he's asleep and then turning over, angrily because she's not getting what she wants. It's incredibly immature. And it's, her being mad at him for, still contacting his mom when he's explained, listen, that's it. She's an older lady. She has nobody else. I'm it. It's stuff like, and then continuing to give him grief about it. Like, oh, he's obsessed with his mom. Like there was nothing. She made me feel things and none of them were positive.
How about you, Justin?
There's two things about it that were funny. Two things, like two feels, right? One of them, I found a lot of it very funny. And as I had mentioned before, it's very millennial relationship, like the things that they would talk about and the issues that they had and the way they were trying to express themselves and sort of the things that came up, and even like the double date and like the laughing and like, saying, going to other people's places, oh, you have a beautiful place. Like we've done that so many times. So like a lot of that hit home with me. I was like, wow, we've done this before. But also some of the arguments and some of the topics sort of gave me anxiety, because I've experienced that before, not on that level, but we've all had fights with our significant other where some similar type of thing came up. You know what it reminded me? Did you guys watch the I don't know if you're into this, the newish Beatles thing with them recording and working out their own
really
problems.
Good. I haven't watched it.
It gave me real anxiety. Ryan, you've been in a band before, so you know what it's like trying to work out issues like over minutia. Like when you look back at it, it's silly. It's like one person wants to do one part, another person wants to do another part, and it's completely arbitrary and it doesn't help. And like they're arguing, there's egos, and like there was a lot of that, and it just brought me back to like times where I would, when I was rehearsing or working with people in a band, and it was just, and it reminded me of it the same way that this reminded me of relationships and trying to work through things, because the writing was really good. The acting was really good for representing the issues that people have in a relationship. And a lot of it was very funny, and some of it gave me anxiety watching.
Yeah.
Sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah, of course.
Well, yeah. So I would echo that. So I think it is very funny. I think it definitely gives you anxiety, but more than anything, it's like that trauma of stress that you deal with. So in that way, it's like I think it works because it does bring you back to some maybe not so great situations and feelings. So I think in that way, the feels kind of works. I do think that by the end, the last episode works really well in making you actually feel something for the characters and root for their success and survival in more ways than one, without giving that away. So I think it does find its way to get there, but definitely it struggles until it gets to that point, in that department. But all right, so I guess you guys haven't watched the full thing, so it's gonna be tough for you to give a full rating. But if you want to give me kind of Cinik, your final thoughts, and on a scale of 1 to 10, how likely are you to finish the show anytime soon?
Well, now that you guys have completely ruined it for me and said that it's relationship based, which is my favorite part of the whole shebang. Now I'll finish it because I am invested in the characters, and I am a Donald Glover fan, despite the shit that I gave him initially. And by going back to, I probably should have focused a little more on the story when you asked the question. I had to get that out because I was watching it and I'm like, this feels like earned to me. Yeah. The story itself has been fun and engaging and interesting and has moved along at a good pace. So I'm not excited about the fact that you guys say that it's slowed down and becomes more relationship based, because I feel like there was a good balance, at least in the first 4 episodes, where we had movement in the story, we had movement in the relationship, and everything was kind of simpatico. Yeah. I'll continue to watch it. I mean, I forget what we're doing here. Is it a 5 or a 10 or a 6, or what are we doing, Ryan? Ratings wise.
Oh, rating out of 10.
Out of 10, I'd give it a solid 7.5.
Okay.
I mean, it was engaging enough in the first 4 episodes that, I'll power through the last 4. And if it's decent, then I'll give a second series or a second season a shot. I mean, my criteria is not that high when it comes to TV watching that, I'm willing to invest a couple hours in something that's even mildly entertaining.
Yeah. And it's solid. Like the ending is really good. Like the last episode is really good. And I think in between is good, but yeah, you're glad to hear that you'll see it through. Justin, how about you?
So the first 3 episodes, I'm going to give a 9. The next after that, I am going to give a 6. Right, that doesn't average out properly. I'm not doing it in terms of an average, just in general. But overall, I would say it's funny that Cinik, you have I think you have lower criteria, because for me, like a 7.5 is pretty good. Right, for like you sound like you didn't like a lot of it, so or you won't. But maybe you would lower your rating if you saw more and that you didn't like it. But I would say that it is about a 7. That's from me. What is like with a 10 being like a Breaking Bad or a Game of Thrones, like on the highest level. So to me, a 7 is totally a show worth watching. Right, I don't consider that a bad rating. But if the final episode really brings it, I would be willing to amend it to maybe an 8 or even a 9, depending on how well the final episode, how much it makes me want to see another season.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. The way the way it ends might be angering or it might be exciting. So I'll be interested to hear both of your guys' thoughts. So I'm gonna give it a 8.75. I don't know. 9 is pretty high. So I was 8.75. I really liked it. I thought the action works. And it's a fun twist on that story. And again, I love the relationship and their chemistry, and I think it worked. I think you got to see it through, and because of how self-aware it is, it makes that chaotic, trauma inducing relationship work, because they are aware of it, and as things build, that comes to a head. So I think they do a very good job with it, even if relationship shows can be kind of annoying. I loved the therapy episode, but I'll be interested to see your thoughts, Cinik. And I think it just does a very good job with this story. There are a bunch of interesting twists and turns, and I love all the cameos. They're all really good. It kind of does a good job of being kind of episode of the week, or mystery of the week, while also kind of having an overarching, story that it's very clearly, following throughout the entire season. So there is some kind of consistency throughout, what they're doing, but then we get each episode kind of is its own, little thing. So yeah, I give it, like I said, 8.75, really solid. Excited to see the next season. I think the way that it ends, puts you in a position where you're going to want to see, what happens, but it also might be very annoying the way they end the show. So I'll definitely follow up with you guys to see your thoughts when it ends. But otherwise, thanks again for both of you guys for being on the show. This was a lot of fun. Went way longer than I thought on the review, but it was really good. I thought it was really good stuff. So all of our stuff can be found. We're at portableholepublishing.com and portable_hole for all of our stuff on social media. Thanks again, guys, for being on the show. And Justin, until next time,
watch out for the hole.